Hi everyone! So today we're going to be doing part 8 of the one and only Ivan. It's going to start on page 142 and end at 160. And today's lessons are under May 20th on Google Classroom. Okay, so if you're going to read with Miss Baker, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start on page 142, My Place. Mac grew sullen. I grew bigger. I became what I was meant to be. Too large for chairs, too strong for hugs, too big for human life. I tried to stay calm, to move more diligently. I did my best to even eat daintily. But human ways are hard to learn, especially when you're not a human. When I saw my new domain, I was thrilled. And who wouldn't be? It had no furniture to break, no glass to smash, no toilets to drop Mac's keys into. It even had a tire swing. I was relieved to have my own place. Somehow I didn't realize I'd be here quite so long. Now I drink Pepsi, I eat old apples, and I watch reruns on TV. But many days I forget what I am supposed to be. Am I a human or am I a gorilla? Humans have so many words, more than they truly need. Still, they have no name for what I am. 9,876 days. Ruby is finally asleep. I watch her chest rise and fall. Bob, too, is snoring. But my mind is still racing. For perhaps the first time ever, I've been remembering. It's an old story to remember, I have to admit. My story has a strange shape, a stunted beginning, an endless middle. I count all the days I've lived with humans. Gorillas count as well as anyone. Although it's not a particularly useful skill to have in the wild. I've forgotten so many things, and yet I always know precisely how many days I've been in my domain. I take one of the magic markers Julia gave me. I make an X, a small one, on my painted jungle wall. I make more X's and more. I make an X for every day of my life with humans. My marks look like this. The rest of the night I mark the days, and when I am done, my wall looks like this. And so on until there are 9,876 X's marking across my wall like a parade of ugly insects. A visit. It's almost morning when I hear the steps. It's Mac. He has a sharp smell and he weaves as he walks. I stand next to my domain. His eyes are red. He is staring out the window at the empty parking lot. Ivan, my man, he mumbles. Ivan. He presses his forehead against the glass. We've been through a lot, you and me. A new beginning. We don't see Mac for 2 days, and when he returns, he doesn't talk about Stella. Mac says he is anxious to teach Ruby some tricks. He says the billboard is bringing in more visitors. He says it's time for a new beginning. All afternoon and into the evenings, Max works with Ruby. Ruby's feet are looping with the rope so that she cannot run. A heavy chain hangs from her neck. Max shows her Stella's ball, her pedestal, her stool. He introduces her to Snickers. When Ruby obeys Mac, he gives her a cube of sugar or a bite of a dry apple. When she doesn't, he yells and kicks at the sawdust. When George and Julia arrive, Mac is still training Ruby. Julia sits on the bench and watches them. She draws a little, but mostly she keeps her eyes on Ruby. Bob watches too. He's hiding in the corner of my domain under knot tag. It's raining outside, and Bob does not like damp feet. Ruby trudges behind Mac, her head drooping, Endlessly, they circle the ring, and sometimes Max slaps her with her flank with his hand. Suddenly, Ruby jerks to a stop. Mac pulls the chains hard and Ruby refuses to move. Come on, Ruby. Max is almost pleading. What is your problem? She's exhausted, I say to myself. That's the problem. Mac groans. Idiot elephant. Idiot human, Bob mutters. Walk, Ruby, I say, although I know she's too far away to hear me. Do what he says. Walk, Mac commands, now. Ruby doesn't walk. She plops her rump in the sawdust floor. I think maybe she's tired, Julia says. Mac wipes his forehead with the back of his arm. Yeah, I know. We're all tired. He pushes Ruby with the heel of his boot and she ignores him. George looks over from the food court where he is wiping off tables. Mac, he yells, maybe you should call it a day. I'll close up. Mac yanks on Ruby's chain. She's as anchored to the tree trunk. He pulls harder and falls on his knees. That does it, Mac says, and he brushes the sawdust off his jeans. I am through playing around. Mac stomps to his office, and he returns. He is carrying a long stick. The gleaming hook on the end is almost beautiful, like the silver moon. It's a claw stick. Mac pokes Ruby with the sharp end, not hard, just a touch. I can tell he wants to see how much it can hurt. I growl low in my throat. Ruby doesn't budge. She is gray, unmoved boulder. She closes her eyes, and for a moment I wonder if she might have fallen asleep. I'm warning you, Mac says. He breathes out. He stares at the ceiling. Ruby makes a huffing sound. Fine, Mac says. You want to play it that way? He draws back the claw stick. No, Julia cries. I'm not going to hurt her, Mac says. I just want to get her attention. Bob snarls. Mac swings. The hook slices the air just a few inches above Ruby's head. See why you don't want to mess with me, Mac says. He draws back the claw stick again. Now move. Ruby jerks her head, flinging her trunk towards Mac, She makes a noise that sends the sawdust scattering. It makes my glass shiver. It is most beautiful mad I have ever heard. Ruby's trunk slaps into Mac. I don't see exactly where he strikes her. Somewhere below her stomach, I think. I know he must be uncomfortable because Mac drops the claw stick and falls to the ground, and curls up like a ball, howls like a baby. Direct hit, Bob says. Poor Mac. Mac groans. He stumbles to his feet, hobbles off towards his office. Ruby watches him leave. I can't read her expression. Is she afraid, relieved, proud? When Mac is gone, George and Julia lead Ruby from the ring. It's okay, baby, it's okay, Julia says, stroking Ruby's head. They settle Ruby in her domain and make sure she has fresh water and food. Before long, Ruby dozes. Dad, Julia asks, as George locks Ruby's iron door, do you think Mac would ever hurt Ruby? I don't think so, Jules, George says. At least I hope not. Maybe we could call someone. George scratches his chin. I wish I could help Ruby, but I wouldn't know how. I mean, who do we call? The elephant cops? Besides, George looks down. I need this job, Jules. We need this job. Your mom, the doctor bills. He kisses the top of Julia's head. Back to work. You and me both. Julia sighs and reaches in her backpack. She removes a piece of paper, a bottle of water, and a small metal box. Homework first, George says, wagging his finger. Then you can paint. It's for art class, Julia explains. We're doing watercolors. I'm going to paint Ruby. George smiles. All right then. Just don't forget your spelling. Dad, Julia asks again, did you see Mac's face when Ruby hit him? George nods. Yes. he says solemnly. I did. He shakes his head. Poor Mac. He turns away. And only then do I hear him laughing. All right, so at this point we should be on page 157, colors. Julia opens the metal box. I see the row of little squares, green, blue, red, black, yellow, purple, orange. The colors seem to glow. She pulls out the brush, and then with a thin tip of a tail at its end, she dips the brush in water and wets the paper, then taps on the red circle. When the brush meets the damp paper, pink petals of color unfurl like morning flowers. I cannot take my eyes off that magical brush. For a moment, I'm not thinking about Ruby and Mac and the claw stick and Stella. Almost. Julia touches red again, then blue, and there suddenly is a purple of a ripe grape. She touches the blue, and the paper turns to the sun sky, black and white, and now I see that she's painting a picture of Ruby. I can make out her floppy ears, her thick legs. Julia stops painting. She takes a few steps back, hands on her hip, gazing at her work. She scolds. It's not right, she says. She glances over her shoulder at me. I try to look encouraging. Julia starts to crumble up the paper, then reconsiders. Instead, she slides it into my cage at the point where the glass is broken. Here you go, she says. A Julia original that'll be worth millions someday. Gingerly, I pick up the paper. I do not eat a single bite of it. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. Julia runs back to her book bag. She pulls out 3 plastic jars. 1 yellow, 1 blue, 1 red. She opens the jars, and an odd, not food smell hits my nose. Julia pushes the jars one by one through the opening, and then she slides some paper through. These are called finger paints, she says. My aunt gave them to me, but really, I'm too old for finger painting. I stick my finger into the red jar. The paint is thick as mud. Oh, it's cool and smooth, like bananas underfoot. I pop my finger into my mouth. It's not exactly ripe mango, but it's not bad. Julia laughs. You don't eat it. You paint with it. She grabs a piece of paper, presses her finger on it. See, like this. I place my finger on a piece of paper. I lift it, and the red mark is there. I get a bigger glob from the pot and slap my hand down on the page. When I pull my hand off the paper, its a red twin stands behind. This isn't like the ghostly handprints on the glass, the ones my visitors leave behind. This handprint can't be so easily wiped away. And there's a picture of that. All right, everyone, so that's where we're going to stop today, and I will see you guys back again on Thursday, okay? Bye!